Our guest for today is a titan in the world of counsel practice, Senior Advocate Janak Dwarkadas.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over.
Was there a particular defining moment that led to the solidification of the idea that I want to become an arguing counsel?
I had an aversion to desk work. So that maybe I'd seen Palkiwala and Jetmalani, and maybe I thought that's the way to go.
Did working with Mr. Chagla shape your approach towards law and advocacy?
I used to challenge myself. I remember that. I used to take up briefs. I would take it up and draft it on my own, and then compare what I had done with what his product could be. Short of tearing up what I had written, I didn't even have the courage to take it close to him.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest installment of GLC Law and Lore, a podcast where we sit with eminent legal luminaries from the prestigious Government Law College and shine a light on their journey to the apex of their fields, while also getting to know more about them as people beyond the bands and gowns. Our guest for today is a titan in the world of counsel practice. He's one of the most respected senior advocates in India with an experience of cases spanning decades, from complex commercial arbitration to landmark company law challenges. He's one of the finest graduates that GLC has produced. His insights are invaluable, his wisdom profound, and his presence truly an honor. We are incredibly privileged to have with us today Senior Advocate Janak Dwarkadas, or as people fondly call him, Janak Bhai. Sir, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me over.
Sir, as we begin with the first segment of the podcast, we'd like you to share some light on your journey at your alma mater, GLC. Did you dislike any subjects? Did you get into any mischief? Or your rapport with your fellow classmates?
I take it you want a very frank answer.
Right.
I accidentally slipped into the government law college. I never intended to do law, but a friend of mine by the name of Pankaj Patel was very influential in those days in choosing a career path. Actually, he wanted us to do chartered accountancy. And my father was a practicing lawyer. My granduncle was a very successful solicitor from Kanga and Company. In fact, he probably started it. And my uncle also, Damodar, was also a very successful solicitor. But somehow I never thought I'd want to do law because when I was in school, I hated studies. And I thought I would do some outdoor job. So this friend of mine said that why don't we sign articles for chartered accountancy? You get to do a lot of audit work and this and that. And not knowing anything better, we signed up for the classes for articleship, etc. And we appeared for the exam, but we did about 3 papers. And when we were about to do the fourth one, I used to own a bike in those days. So he was riding pillion, and he kind of I think our center was in Matunga, Korea College, and somewhere near the other TT circle, he said, "Let's turn back." So I said, "Are you not well?" He said, "No, no, I think we should turn back." So I said, "Is there a problem?" He said, "No, we don't want to do CA." So I said, "What do you mean you don't want to do CA?" He said, "Yeah, I think it's a very boring field." I said, "We are midway through our exams. We've done 3 papers. Why don't we finish it?" He says, "Do you know what CAs do?" He made me stop the bike. And I said, "No, what do they do?" So he says, "We tick like this, they tick like this." So I said, "So?" "Ah, it's very boring. You won't understand. Let's go back." So we turned the bike and we went back. And my father was astonished to see me back home. And he says, "Everything okay?" I said, "Yeah, except that we're not doing CA." So he said, "What's wrong with you guys? Why are you?" I said, "Well, Pankaj said we are not doing CA." So that was the end of CA. So then, of course, we had a little closed door meeting. And I said, "So what are we going to do now?" He said, "Have you heard Nani Palkiwala? Have you heard Jetmalani argue?" I said, no, I had not heard them, even though I should have because of the close connection of the family. So in those days, Palkiwala used to give lectures at the CCI East Lawns on the budget.
Okay.
And we heard him speak, and soon I think there was some matter going on in the High Court where Jethmalani happened to be arguing. So he went and heard him. Bo, of course, I mean, we couldn't have got better inspiration than that. So we went to Government Law College and we tried to pay our fees. And there was a big commotion because the clerk said you're two months too late. So we said, but I mean, come on, I mean, so what? He says, no, no, you can't accept fees and all. So whilst we were arguing with him, the principal came out. In those days, the Government Law College the office and the principal's cabin were close by, and they had those swing doors. So he could, and the partitions were half partitions, so he could hear what was going on. So he came out and he said, what is happening? So that guy told him in Marathi, "La fee bharai chahiye." I mean, these guys want to pay the fees. So he fired us and he said, is this the time to come? 2 months are gone. Classes have started. I said, "Gyeon gaya." And he told the peon, take the fees. So the fees were some paltry amount. And then he just wrote something on the form and we happened to be in the B division.
Okay.
And the B division was the morning college, which had the best professors because they were practicing counsel who used to teach over there. And that's how I actually landed up in Government Law College. But within no time, Pankaj got married and went away to London. And he was running a shop which was called a supermarket there. But anyway, I never saw him for many years thereafter, and I remained in law college. Only thing I can say is I had a whale of a time. I will not shy away from saying it. Uh, we attended some lectures, and of course, some of the lectures by, say, Rafiq Dada, for instance, who used to teach us income tax. He would have 150% attendance because students from other classes or divisions would come and listen to him.
Right.
There were some good lecturers, Vatsal Chatrapati, who then later became my chamber colleague.
Okay.
He used to teach us drafting, pleading. So there were select lectures which we attended. The rest of the time we either spent at Satkar, a restaurant across the GLC, or we caught up with all the Hindi movies that we had never seen in our lives because there used to be matinee shows.
Hmm.
Matinee shows, I don't know whether people are aware of, but the tickets for matinee shows used to be one third the cost of a ticket otherwise. So whereas a ticket would cost 3 rupees and 50 paise, this would cost 1 rupee and 25 paise. So that became also more affordable for us. And that's how we basically spent our 2 3 years in law college, except in the, I was also working for my uncle's firm. He used to run a business. So I used to go there whenever I felt like. But otherwise, GLC was a picnic. I must be very honest about it. I had a great time. We made some great friends, many of whom are practicing lawyers today. So I think all in all, it was a great experience.
Right, sir. In your last year of law school, you interned with Kanga and Co.
Correct.
But you didn't sign your articles with them because you wanted to become an arguing counsel.
Right.
So, considering you mentioned earlier that you were completely averse to the idea of pursuing law, and you also had some struggles with introversion and public speaking. So was there a particular defining moment that led to the solidification of the idea that this is what I want to do? I want to become an arguing counsel.
Well, I honestly, if you ask me, I made the decision without really, fortunately, without knowing what counsel practice meant. It was just the fact that maybe I'd seen Palkiwala and Jait Malani, and at the subconscious level, maybe I thought, that's the way to go. My father was an arguing counsel, but I never heard him argue in court. But still, somehow maybe that image had stayed behind or what, I don't know. But I was very clear that if I'm going to do practice law, then it will be as an arguing counsel and not do desk work. I somehow had an aversion to desk work. So that may have played some role. So I didn't sign my articles, even though, Mr. Bhakta was the senior partner there, like a father figure to me. He kind of tried to persuade me, and I said, no, I'm only here for a year, and that's it. And I'll see what happens thereafter.
Right, so that brings us to the beginning of your professional journey. You started your journey into counsel practice working under Mr. Iqbal Chagla. You were,
Very fortunate.
right, sir. You were with him for 8 years. That must be profoundly impactful. Did working with Mr. Chagla shape your approach towards law and advocacy? And were there any specific lessons that you learned from him that you've since tried to pass on to your juniors?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm eternally grateful to Iqbal. Mickey, we used to call him Mickey. And I think he has shaped my entire life, just not my career. So there were a lot of inspiring moments. But I must tell you, when you asked me, the last question was, have you passed on what you learned from him? The first thing I learned from him was on the very first day. When I went to meet him, thanks to my dad who knew him, and he said, look here, young man, first of all, you will call me Mickey. And that itself came as a bit of a shocker because I came from a very, very orthodox family where, elders were respected. And I mean, nobody ever addressed each other by first name, particularly if you are older. So that was a first shocker. And then he said, this is your profession. This is my profession as much as it is yours. You're here because you want to be here. I'm not going to be a headmaster. I'm not a school teacher. I don't take attendance. You can come when you want, leave when you want. You can read my briefs if you like. If you don't like, it's okay. And you can attend conferences unless I tell you not to if it's confidential. You can come to court with me, and hopefully somewhere you will learn the law. And that was my introduction to counsel practice. I mean, at that moment, I felt I honestly wasn't required, or I was being told you might as well go home. But I realized the value of what he said, because from day one, I realized I'm going to be accountable entirely for what I do or I don't do. That made all the difference, I would say, right at the start. Because on that day, I took a call on my own. He said he's not gonna, take attendance. That I will attend chambers way before he comes in, and I will not leave chambers till he has left. And I would read up whatever briefs he had, whether I understood or not. And I don't know. I mean, working with him was like not work. It was more play than work because he was so easygoing. I mean, he never demanded anything from you. He never said, look here, where is this? Why have you not done this? I told you this. Nothing. There was nothing like that. If you read up the brief and you had something to say, you could say, Mickey, I was reading this brief and can I have a word? I mean, can I discuss it with you? And you would say, of course. What did you think about it? And it would be, and he was never judgmental. He never ran you down. He never kind of chided you if he felt you were not on the right track. Even if you made a mistake, he would say, no, no, that's not the way. I'll tell you how it's done. And he was, I mean, it was, and when you were working with him, he was never tense. So you never got tense in the bar, going along. And appearances for him in court made it, he made it look so easy. He made it look like child's play. If he was dictating a draft, I remember he used to play with his mustache and his goatee, and he would go on doing this, and the words would just flow, like a stream without any hesitation. The draft would come back, he would make a few corrections, and then it would go back, for typing. I mean, it used to be magical for me. But what I realized was that there was a method in all this. It wasn't a fluke, it wasn't magic. It was years of hard work and experience. And because of course, he had tremendous command over the language. So he was very well read. He had a great love for literature and poetry, so which also made it easier for him. And I used to challenge myself. I remember that. I used to take up briefs which, for instance, if you had to draft a plaint in those days or draft a written statement or any pleading, I would take it up and draft it on my own, handwrite it if I could. And then compare what I had done with what his product could be. And I can assure you, in the beginning, short of tearing up what I had written, I didn't even have the courage to, take it close to him. But as time went by and I picked up, as I said, subconsciously picked up what was happening, the draft started getting, closer and closer. And one day, finally, I had the courage to tell him, I think he had to do some opinion. And I said, Mickey, do you mind if I show you what I have done before you start dictating it? He said, of course, show it to me. He looked at it and he called the solicitor and he said, give him a docket. He's done an excellent job. I couldn't have done a better job. I'll just sign off on this. So that is how he made you feel so comfortable. And, he gave you all the confidence. And I think probably I have imbibed those qualities. I have said the same thing to probably every one of the juniors who has joined me. Maybe there were 20, 25, I don't even remember. And I think I've always told them, be on your own. I mean, and try to learn on your own. Don't
Right.
and don't try to imitate or copy somebody else. You can never be somebody. You can only be yourself.
On that, sir, it has been said that one of your best traits is giving your juniors due credit for their work. Some of you juniors have gone on to become senior counsels like Mr. Sharan Chaktiani, Mr. Zalanda Rudrina, Miss Madhvi Devan, and Mr. Rahul Narachanya. And two of them have also been elevated to the bench. For example, retired Justice Gautam Patel and Justice Kamal Khata. What is the Midas touch, so to speak, in the chambers of Janak Dwarkadas that has led to the advancement of your juniors?
I think basically there's nothing magical and there's no secret or there are no formulas to all this. I think I've been, first of all, very fortunate. Let's be very clear. God has been very kind to me. Maybe the kind of work I had also made it, in that sense, interesting
Hmm.
and challenging uh, for me, first of all. And because the work was interesting and challenging, probably it made it interesting and challenging for the juniors also. And as I said, I have never really, extracted work in that sense or never, you know, eh, eh, been a taskmaster in that sense. And I have also let them grow in their own way, at their own pace, in their own, in their own style, if I may put it that way. And as I said, every individual, I think I respect the fact that every individual is different. And I cannot expect the same from each one of them.
Right.
So I would say the lesson, if at all if I've learned from this whole thing is that never compare one with the other
Right.
and never try to play one against the other or try to say that, look, I give this one and he turned out or she turned out the draft in so much time and look what you are doing. And I don't think I work that way. I don't think that's the right way to go. And I don't think it inspires confidence to be told that you're not as good as your neighbor or your friend or your colleague in the chamber. So I never talk about one junior to the other. And if they have any difficulty, they are free to approach me. They can talk to their own colleagues, but I don't believe that they should feel hesitant to ask of me anything that is worrying them or troubling them or what they feel they are not able to do. So I think encouragement is what I believe is the key. And I'm sure those who have progressed like Zal or Sharan or Madhvi or whoever, Gautam, Kamal, they will all follow in those footsteps and pass on the baton.
Right, sir. And for a moment now, reflecting on your remarkable career, you've gone head to head with some of the powerhouse of the legal industry. For example, Darius Kambata, sir, who also happened to be your former chamber colleague. So, are there any benefits or challenges coming with being chamber's colleague with someone you frequently face as opposing counsel? And is it hard to maintain cordial relations with them after having intensely argued with them in court?
I think the uniqueness about the original side is that, and particularly working with my senior, and so did Daraz, is the fact that Iqbal was a true professional.
Mm,
He left the work behind in court. He never carried it outside the corridor of outside the threshold of the court. I think that is one very, very big lesson we learned from him. And however much, arguments can get heated in court, and which is part of the game. I mean, I'm not saying we've not had heated arguments. Darius and I often have been pitted against each other, and we do happen to, find ourselves in heated argument and trying to obviously convince the court our way. And there have been times, and I give you a small example where once we were really, almost in a clinch, as they say, in wrestling terms, and it was very heated. And the judge fortunately knew where both of us came from. And I think it was Justice Kathawala. And he realized that, this wasn't looking very good. So he sort of paused and he says, just the other day, I was telling one of my interns, have you seen this photo of Chagla and Daraz and Janak, in Mahabaleshwar at the club? And the whole temperature came down in a second, and we were back to, where we were. And of course, I mean, I can tell you, I mean, Daraz has been equally, what would you say, good about the fact that he never carries anything outside the court. And whatever it may be, we even if you had any kind of misunderstandings, we clear them right away. If I don't think there have been any, but even if there were, we would not want to carry it forward, because we all go back 2 3 generations, and I think the friendship is far far more valuable, the companionship, the friendship, than what we do for our respective clients. So it's good to maintain that discipline, and it's good to know that just as you have to argue or brief, your opponent is also briefed to do the best for his or her client. And one should not, therefore, get identified to the point where you lose your objectivity and you tend to then become personal.
mm. So that brings us to the last question of this segment. Recently, we've been noticing this noticeable trend where law graduates are gravitating towards corporate practice over traditional litigation. How do you view this shift, sir?
I mean, I don't blame them. You look at the. I mean, I must have, as I said, when I joined the law college, what was the trend at that time? He wanted an additional degree for your job prospects. You did law. You had nothing better to do. You did law. It was not really, very few took up law as a degree with the idea of practicing law, because everybody had this feeling that you could only do well in law if you had a godfather in the profession or something like that. So very few people migrated to law from having no background at all. Not that those people didn't do well. I know so many of my colleagues and friends who had no legal background or godfather, and yet they've done phenomenally well. But it was generally that was a trend. Now, what is happening is, with the number of law schools, as they are called, and law colleges which have mushroomed, and of course, the huge fees that I'm hearing they charge for 4 years and 5 years or whatever is the period. I mean, what does a student do? You come out of law college, you've gone down 40, 50 lakhs of rupees. Now you're a student. Obviously, you can't afford to pay those kind of fees. So somebody is paying those fees, most probably the parents.
Yeah.
Now, if you have incurred that kind of expenditure, I mean, your first reaction would be, how do I make up for all this, amount of money that has been spent in getting the law degree? So, if you look at it that from that perspective, a corporate job
Hmm.
can definitely get you a steady income, and maybe it might give you the monetary reward that you're looking for from day one.
Right.
Okay, the starting salary itself could be quite substantial if you're picked up, in law college when you're studying. Why will you headhunters come there nowadays?
So
And all that,
placement, you say.
placements and all that. So as compared to say joining the original site, I mean, there are no guarantees. In fact, on the original side, the senior never even pays the junior a single rupee. And if the curve could be 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, and that too, you don't know at the end of it whether you will make it or you won't make it.
Mhm.
So, how many people would have that kind of stomach or patience to wait it out? So, therefore, these alternatives, and if they are well paying jobs, and there is progress in the corporate world nowadays, a law graduate has a very good chance of making it to CEO level or director level. So I would say that there's nothing wrong in what is happening, because I don't think the profession can absorb the number of law graduates that are coming out. It's like almost a factory. It's like,
Yeah.
so I think, and there is, scope for lawyers. I mean, in that sense, people who've done their law are looking to the fact that the compliances today, which every startup or even a flourishing industry or a corporate has to comply with, I don't think any business can do without legal help.
Right.
I don't think so. And therefore, I think there is enough scope for them to get into that field.
Right. For the second segment, sir, we'll be getting your takes on some contemporary legal issues. Let's start with something that's close to your heart. Your deep appreciation for nature extends beyond your personal pursuits like organic farming and selecting travel destination based on the natural surroundings. It is also translated to your professional life with your active involvement in environmental litigation. Nowadays, sir, in Mumbai, it seems that almost every second road is dug up, and there are high rises popping up in every vicinity, and the pollution levels are peaking daily. So, what do you think are the legal measures that can be taken to ensure that there's an equilibrium in the developmental needs while also preserving the environment?
I think India as a country has far more legislation than it requires. The problem is not lack of legislation, it is the lack of implementation, it's the lack of accountability, and it's the lack of a complete absence, not lack, of leadership. I'm sorry to say that we don't have leaders, we only have politicians. To my mind, it has reached a level where I personally think at this rate there is no hope. Absolutely no hope, because the courts can only do this much.
Right.
I mean, there is a petition we are fighting, for instance, to get these hawkers removed, illegal hawkers. On every occasion, the division bench has told the police authorities and the corporation, why don't you just tell us that you are not willing to do anything, or you can't do anything, you're powerless. We'll record it in our order, and that's it. Why should we spend judicial time passing any order if you're not going to implement them? It has made no difference. Right below my own office, Mullah House, there are illegal hawkers. I myself have gone to court and pointed out it has no impact. I mean, I'm just giving this as an illustration. I'm not trying to fight that matter here. But I go to Pune very often. I have a place there. There is zero planning. There is zero means zero planning. I know for a fact that one of the areas, and I'm talking of just one area, but it's symptomatic of the whole city, has got skyscrapers, is beyond what is called Kharadi. Kharadi is the one of the IT parks of Pune. Beyond that is a place called Wagoli. Some people call it Upper Kharadi. Some means the builders, obviously to gain from that name, like your Upper Worli and whatever. Every building beyond Kharadi, whether it's 20-storied, 10-storied, 5-storied, and there are constructions coming up every minute all along the river bank in the most arid part of Pune.
Okay.
People struggle to get bore well water at 250 feet. That place has no municipal water supply, not even a drop. There are no streets. There are no lights. There is no drainage. There is no sewerage. There is no collection of garbage. I don't know how they can be allowed to sell apartments which are supposed to be RERA registered as they advertise it and blast it in every advertisement on the radio, television, or wherever on hoardings. King size swimming pools, Olympic size swimming pools. I have a place there. I have run out of water for the first time in my bore well by February. I do not know how. I told my caretaker, please go to one of these builders whose sales office is close by. Please go and just ask him. You are selling a 50-story tower which is under construction. Ask him, where is he going to get the water from?
Right.
He was told candidly it will be either tanker water or bore well water. I have to take tanker water today. I want to understand in which part of the world will any municipal corporation who's supposed to be accountable
Hmm.
ever allow any developer to put up this kind of construction without there being any kind of planning, any planning? Forget, we talk of planning like, okay, here you'll have a garden, here you'll have some cultural center, here you'll have schools, here you'll have colleges, here hospitals, here. Where is the question? Anybody can build what they want. There are no restrictions. I mean, I'm just talking of a corner, a, a small corner of supposedly Pune is supposed to be the upcoming, I think, in the top 10 or top 5, I don't know what the numbering is, of in the second tier cities of India. But this is the reality, and this is being replicated everywhere. So if you're talking about laws of to bring about environmental safeguards, it's not that we don't have laws. It's just that there is nobody to implement them. I'm just giving this as an illustration because what I'm realizing is that we have lost the ability to think beyond our noses. That's the problem we have. We think that we are going to be able to eat concrete or we are going to be able to live eating money. Neither of them can give you food on the table. We are converting agricultural land, which has got soil which we cannot create, into housing and industries. The previous Chief Justice at least he came down heavily
Right, sir.
because he realized that Sanjay Gandhi National Park has got 5 lakes which supply drinking water to the city. And if today Bombay has 24 by 7 water supply, not all over, but most places, is thanks to that area, which also we are allowing vote banks in the form of slums to get in and eat up that place. God help us if that happens. So I'm just saying, as citizens, how aware are we? How aware are we? What steps are we taking? I mean, today, why would you, for instance, okay, you need a house, everybody needs shelter.
Hmm.
But how can any sensible person go to that builder and book a flat when tells you, I have no drinking water? It's part of Article 21, right to life. The most basic requirement is water. And he's telling you very openly, it'll depend on whether I get tankers. There is such a huge tanker mafia operating in Pune, you have no idea. That they're converting sewage water into what they call drinking water, and that's why you're seeing all the GBC cases in Pune.
Right.
So I'm sorry if I got a bit carried away, but this is something which really troubles me, and I think it's connected to the question you asked me about environment, because this is all part of, the environment that we are creating
Hmm.
without understanding that is not going to, in the long run, give us our. So the basic needs are food, water, shelter,
Hmm.
and clothing.
Right.
But food and water are nature's gifts, and they are not going to come to you out of concrete buildings. And this kind of destruction of the land, and fertile land, particularly fertile land that you are converting into housing, and we call it development, we call it progress. We are only fooling ourselves.
Right, sir. So if I had to sum up your answer in one line, it would be that the legislations exist, but they should be strongly implemented.
Correct. And everything can't be done through PILs.
Okay. That brings us to the last segment of this episode, sir. And we would like to switch some gears and move into a rapid fire round. Now, the objective is not to give it too much thought and just answer with the first thing that pops into your mind. Ready? So the first question is 3 songs on a daily playlist.
There are 2 Frank Sinatra songs and 1 Hemant Kumar song.
Okay. Your dream bike or car model?
My dream car would be a Rolls Royce. A dream bike, I think I've given up because I don't think the roads exist anymore to ride a bike. But if I had to, I would buy a BMW.
Okay. So, if you had the chance to argue before a yesteryear judge, who would you choose to?
Yeah, I was very, very fond of Justice Marden.
Okay.
I think he was a very fair judge, a very clever judge. And again, he was one of those people who never took himself very seriously. So appearing in his court was always a pleasure.
Okay. If you had to sum up the Bombay bar in 3 words.
Unique, original, as in original side, and I hope everlasting.
Right, sir. If you had a talk show, who would you invite as your first guest?
I would have invited Chagla, but unfortunately he's no more.
Your favorite chamber tradition?
The tea club. We used to meet every day at the end of the day after court hours, and it would be a half an hour tea break. And the first rule was that nobody was allowed to talk work, nobody was allowed to talk about their matters. That applied to Mickey too, and it used to be a laugh riot. And most of it was unprintable, so we had a great time.
Okay. So, your favorite cricketing team apart from India?
Australia.
Right. In a high stakes matter, if you had to choose one co counsel, who would it be?
Yes.
Organic farming or council practice?
If organic farming paid as much as council practice, 100%.
Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed rapid. Before we end our interview, do you have any advice for the listening law graduates or freshers?
Yes, I would love to tell them that don't go for the glamour. There is a lot of glamour in this profession from the outside, but from the inside, it's really hard work. There are no flukes, there are no magic wands, and like in every other profession, success is only the product of hard work. So don't ever think that anybody who has made it without having put in the hours.
Thank you so much for your time. So it was indeed an extremely insightful episode. Thank you so much for yours. This was Anjali for Law and Lore signing off.
Thank you so much for inviting me once again.